The invitation arrived, folded in cream paper, thick enough to sound expensive when opened. Mrs. Margot Hathaway requested my company for afternoon tea. There was no mention of my son Daniel's name, only family tea to celebrate Hannah's homecoming. That was my daughter in law, freshly returned from her honeymoon in Italy. I read the words twice, trying to decide if they felt warm or polite. Then I smiled at my reflection in the kitchen window and said out loud, "You can do this." The reflection didn't look convinced. I ironed my one silk blouse, the navy one with pearl buttons that never quite matched. I polished my sensible shoes and put on the locket Daniel had given me before college, the one with his baby picture and a lock of his father's hair. At 3 o'clock sharp, I stood at the raw iron gates of the Hathaway estate, a place where money had never learned modesty. The lawn was perfect, the windows mirrored the sky, and every step of the drive seemed to echo my name in question. When the butler opened the door, he hesitated before asking, "Are you delivering something?" "I suppose I am," I said, "myself." Inside, the drawing room smelled of lavender polish and distance. Crystal light scattered on a table set for 6. 5 chairs were occupied. Margot Hathaway looked up, her smile shaped by duty more than welcome. "Ah, you must be Daniel's mother." The words, "you must be," carried more chill than greeting. "Yes," I said, taking my seat, "and you must be his." From that moment, I understood the tea wasn't for celebration. It was a test, served hot. Margot Hathaway was the kind of woman who could apologize without losing an inch of power. "We weren't sure you could make it," she said, pouring tea that smelled faintly of roses and judgment. "Such a drive from, where was it again?" "Brookfield," I said. "About 40 minutes. "Ah, she replied, as if that distance required bravery. Hannah smiled at me, small and quick, the way a girl waves from behind glass. Daniel reached for my hand under the table, but his mother's cough clipped the gesture in half. On the table sat 6 bone china cups trimmed in gold. 5 had matching saucers. One, mine, was plain white porcelain. It wasn't an accident. Eleanor Hathaway, the family matriarch, noticed before anyone else. Her hands trembled with age, but her eyes missed nothing. "Margot," she said mildly, "did you run out of cups?" Margot's laugh was light. "Oh, you know how help misplaces things. This will do." The help was a woman in her 50s named Rosa, who poured tea with the precision of a surgeon. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second, both understanding too much. I lifted the plain cup carefully, the heat rising through porcelain to skin. "It's lovely," I said. Margot tilted her head. "You must be used to simpler things." "Simple things last," I said and took a sip. Jeffrey Hathaway cleared his throat, changing the subject to Daniel's new job at the firm. "We're glad to have him aboard," he said, smiling in a way that sold success like stock. I smiled back. "Daniel's glad too. He's always admired honest work." Jeffrey's fork paused over a pastry, as if the word honest had texture. Margaret filled the silence with a laugh. "Clara, dear, do you take sugar?" "Just one," I said. "Too much, and you forget what you're drinking." Hannah's eyes flicked to me, startled by the edge in my tone. Then a slow smile touched her mouth. The conversation drifted toward Italy, art galleries, and the weather in places I couldn't afford to pronounce. Each remark floated like perfume. Expensive, pretty, meaningless. Eleanor leaned toward me. "My dear, how do you find our town?" I looked out the tall windows at the manicured garden where roses bloomed in disciplined rows. "Well kept," I said, "though I suspect the roots have to fight for air." She chuckled softly. "So they do." Halfway through the meal, Margot asked about my late husband. He was in construction, wasn't he? Yes, I said. He built things that stayed standing. Her smile never reached her eyes. How noble. For the rest of the hour, I played my part. The polite, grateful visitor. But every word, every gesture, drew the porcelain line deeper between us. When dessert came, a lemon tart bright as wealth, Margot lifted her cup and said, "To new family." I raised my plain white cup in return, and to what holds when the fine china breaks. The butler's hand slipped just then, a small clink of porcelain on porcelain, and for a heartbeat the room's perfection cracked. No one breathed until Margot's smile returned. "Accidents happen," she said. "Yes," I agreed. "They show us what's real." That evening, I found myself replaying every glance, every syllable, as I washed the plain cup Rosa had secretly wrapped and slipped into my bag. "A souvenir," she had whispered. At home, my cottage smelled of cedar and peace. I set the cup on my counter and studied it. There were faint scratches near the rim, proof of use, not flaw, the kind of wear that meant something had lived. Daniel called after dinner. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how they were being." "They're your wife's family," I said gently. "You'll learn their language soon enough." "I don't want to learn it if it hurts you." "It doesn't," I lied. "It's just tea." But lying never suited me. The truth sat heavy as sugar at the bottom of a cup. 2 days later, Margot called. "Clara, darling, we're hosting a charity brunch this weekend. Do join us." Casual, of course. "Of course," I said, knowing exactly what casual meant in her dialect. I wore the same navy blouse, pressed again, the same shoes, cleaned again, and the same calm I used to face gossip in the teacher's lounge for 25 years. The brunch was grander than tea. Strangers filled the drawing room, doctors, bankers, wives with manicured laughter. I moved quietly among them, content to be overlooked, until a woman near the piano said loudly, "That must be the mother from Brookfield. Daniel's mother, the librarian. Charming that they still read there." Margot's voice followed, smooth as satin. "She's wonderfully grounded, a rare trait." I turned, smiling. Grounded people keep others from floating away. Hannah laughed too loudly, embarrassed for them all. Later, in the hallway, Eleanor stopped me. "You have the patience of a saint," she said. "Not a saint," I answered. "Just a mother who's learned that silence doesn't mean surrender." She nodded. "They'll see that soon enough." Before I left, Rosa pressed something into my hand. A folded piece of lace. "From Mrs. Hathaway's drawer," she whispered. "Thought you might know what to do with it." It was hand-stitched lace, the edge of a torn tablecloth. Proof that even perfect tables hide rips. Driving home, I smiled for the first time since that first tee. The game had started, but they didn't yet know I knew how to play. The next invitation came in the form of a favor. Hannah called, breathless. "Mom, Clara, could you possibly help with the dinner? Mother wants to impress a partner of Dad's, and Rose is sick." Margot on the phone moments later confirmed it with polished desperation. "Would be so grateful, truly. It's impossible to find good help last minute." Help. The word rolled through me like thunder, too far to fear. I said yes. When I arrived, Margot met me at the door, pearls perfect, smile tense. "You're a lifesaver," she said, handing me an apron. "I brought my own," I said, holding up one stitched with roses. Old habits. The kitchen was chaos disguised as sophistication. Platters, sauces, nervous staff, Jeffrey barked about contracts, Margot barked about flowers, and Hannah's eyes begged me to forgive them all. I slipped into the rhythm of the work, the slicing, stirring, timing. Years of library quiet had trained me to read rooms like open books. By 7, the dining table glittered again, 6 teacups gleaming like sentinels. I placed the plain one, mine, at the head seat before Margot could notice. When she finally saw it, she froze. "Oh, how odd," she said. "That cup again." "It's my favorite," I said. "It holds more than people think." During dinner, conversation turned to art, property, and charity, things you can buy to feel good. Jeffrey bragged about a new investment, his voice loud enough to hide insecurity. Eleanor sat quietly, watching. At one point, she said, "Jeffrey, perhaps Clara can recommend a book for you on humility." The room froze. Then Daniel coughed, covering a laugh. Hannah smiled behind her napkin. Margot's face stiffened, but she recovered. "Mother is teasing, of course." "I know," I said. "Still, I'd recommend biographies. They remind us that every empire falls, sometimes gracefully." After dinner, Eleanor joined me in the kitchen. "You've changed the pattern," she said softly. "They don't know it yet, but they're learning." The plain cup sat drying on the counter beside the lace I'd placed under it, a crack hidden in beauty. Outside, the night snow started again, soft and clean, covering the footprints of every role I'd been asked to play. The fourth time I saw the Hathaways, it wasn't an invitation. It was a summons disguised as concern. Hannah called first, voice thin. "Could you come by today? Mom's in a mood." "A mood about what?" I asked, though I already knew. In families like that, moods are about control. "You found out about your job," Hannah said reluctantly, "that you're still at the public library." I smiled at the kitchen clock, at the cracked number 3. "Is that a crime in Greenwich now?" "It's not that," she rushed. "It's just she keeps saying Daniel should have married up." There it was. The quiet storm I'd felt at the first tea was forming words now. "I'll come," I said. "You don't have to be alone in the room when she says small things with big voices." When I arrived, the house was louder than usual. A florist was leaving. A man in a suit was walking out, talking urgently on the phone. Through the cracked study door, I saw Jeffrey Hathaway rubbing his forehead. Margot was standing, arms crossed, in her stone-colored dress. She looked at me the way people look at rain after they've done their hair. "Clara," she said, "you work." "I do," I said. "So does your housekeeper. So does your gardener. So does your son." "It's different," she said, as though income had a genealogy. "You work in circulation. As you books deserve to move." I said, "So do people." She waved a hand like she was swatting gnats. "My point is, when we tell people our son married, we don't want to say his mother is a librarian." A little dub, Anna. "A retired librarian," I corrected gently. "Widowed. Raised him alone. Paid his tuition before your husband gave him a desk." For a heartbeat, every sound in the house stopped. Hannah stepped between us, loyalty in conflict written on her face. "Mom, Clara isn't the problem." "What is the problem?" I asked, calm. "That I'm not embarrassed enough by my life?" Margot straightened. "You came to tea without a proper bag." I almost laughed. "A bag?" "Yes," she said, looking at my simple leather purse like it had blasphemed. "You bring tote bags. Fabric ones." "I do, because I carry books and sometimes extra groceries for neighbors." Her lips tightened. "That's not how we do things here." Here, I repeated, as in this house or as in your idea of up there? Eleanor's voice floated from the hall like a bell. She means the second one, dear. We both turned. Eleanor was in her shawl, leaning on a cane, eyes bright. They live in a world where appearance has a plot line, she told me. You live in one where people eat. Margot flushed. Mother, this is between all of us, Eleanor said, moving slowly into the room. Because I've listened to you judge that woman ever since Daniel brought her over, and I think you keep forgetting I was once not rich. The room held its breath. Margot's mouth opened, then closed. Mother, we don't need to dredge up. We do, Eleanor said, because Clara needs to know something. This family's money started in laundry, not marble. My father delivered milk. Your father married well and invested better. We only became insufferable in the last 30 years. I looked at her, surprised. Real history in a room made of staging. She pointed at the tea service on the sideboard. Those cups? I bought them at an estate sale when Margot was 10 because I wanted to feel like I belonged. I kept one old porcelain cup to remind myself, the plain white one. The room tilted. I looked from the tea set to her to Margot, who suddenly looked smaller. It was you, I said quietly. You kept that cup. Eleanor nodded. Because things that last aren't always the prettiest. I told the staff to always have it out, to remind me. She turned to Margot. When did it become a tool to remind other people? Margot exhaled sharply, cornered by history. I was only trying to protect the family's level. No, Eleanor said, soft but final. You were trying to feel taller. The doorbell rang. The butler appeared, anxious. Mrs. Hathaway, the Delacourts are here for the financial review. Ah, so that was the noise in the house. So that was the real reason for the performance. Something was strained. Money was being looked at. I stepped back. I should go. But Eleanor held up a hand. No, stay. They should see who counts as family here. Margot frowned. Mother, no, not today. Especially today, Eleanor said. And that is when I understood the deepest layer of the test. I had been treated like a poor, naive mom, not just because they dismissed me, but because they hoped I would not notice the cracks in their own ceiling. Real faces come out when shame walks in. The Delacourts were not like the Hathaways. They were the type of rich that never said rich out loud. Old European with vowels that traveled, with a taste for subtlety and power. Their arrival made even Margot stand straighter. Geoffrey, Mr. Delacour said, shaking hands in the foyer, we thought we'd do this here. More personal than the office. Geoffrey laughed a shade too loud. Of course, of course. I stood slightly to the side, a woman in a simple blouse, holding my small purse, looking exactly like what they expected. Someone who should disappear into the kitchen. Mrs. Delacour's eyes slid over me, then back. And you are Daniel's mother, I said. Ah, she said, relief in her tone. From outside town? From the part of town where people know their neighbors, I said. The corners of her mouth twitched. Not quite approval, not quite disdain. We moved to the sitting room, where the tea had been reset. This time, 6 cups, all matching. No white porcelain anywhere. But on the sideboard, half tucked behind a silver tray, I saw it. The plain cup, the one they'd used for me, the one that had belonged to Eleanor first, as a reminder, then to the staff as an instruction. Eleanor saw my eyes find it. She nodded once. The Delacours opened their folders, numbers, projections, valuations. I understood more than they thought. Libraries teach you to read people faster than pages. We're just tightening exposure, Mr. Delacour said. Real estate has been volatile. Geoffrey cleared his throat, glancing at Margot. Our liquidity is sound. It would be more sound, Mrs. Delacour said coolly, if the Greenwich property weren't over-leveraged. There it was, a crack louder than China. Margot's smile stiffened. That is a strategic mortgage. It is a large mortgage, Mrs. Delacour corrected. And your son married recently? Yes, Margot said. Well, and his wife? Mrs. Delacour's eyes moved to Hannah, then to me, reading, comparing, analyzing, class. I should have kept quiet, but something in me had been scraped raw by their delicate humiliations. His wife is my daughter-in-law, I said. She married for love, not for leverage. Silence, heavy, colonial. Margot's eyes flashed. Don't. Geoffrey shifted. Clara, we don't discuss. Why not? I said, calm. You've been discussing me. Eleanor smiled, pleased. I reached to the sideboard and, without asking, took the plain white teacup and set it in front of me. This is the one I was given, I said to the Delacours. When I was tested, Mrs. Delacour looked interested. Tested? Yes, I said, to see if I would be comfortable being the poor, naive mom. Hannah gasped softly. Daniel, who had come in from the hall, stared at his mother in disbelief. Mom? Did you? Margot's cheeks flushed. It was a misunderstanding. No, I said gently. It was very clear. The Delacourts exchanged a look the way bankers do when the real numbers appear. So, I continued, since we are all here being very frank about who belongs at which table and who brings value and who brings risk, I think we should be honest. For once. I turned to Geoffrey. You were happy that Daniel married into your family because you could offer him work. And I was happy he married your daughter because I thought he'd found love. Now I find out I was being measured while you are being audited. That landed hard. Geoffrey looked as if I'd slapped him, but underneath the offense was something else. Relief that someone had finally said it out loud. Mrs. Delacour's voice had softened. It seems, she said, that there is strength in this family that does not come from money. Eleanor beamed. At last, someone noticed. Margot inhaled sharply. Mother. Enough, Margot, Eleanor said, suddenly every inch the matriarch she used to be. You embarrassed this woman in your own home, while letting strangers audit your worth. You forgot the order of dignity. I set the cup down, steady. I was not embarrassed, I said. I was informed. The Delacours closed their folders. We'll proceed, Mr. Delacour said, but with some adjustments. When they left, the house seemed to shrink. Margot sank into a chair. You made me look small, she said to me. No, I said. You made yourself look small. I only held the mirror. Daniel came to stand by me. Mom? I didn't know. I know you didn't, I said. That's why I didn't correct you sooner. Hannah spoke at last, voice trembling. Mom, why did you do that? To her? Margot's eyes filled, finally. Because she could walk away, she whispered. And I can't. That confession said more about wealth than any ledger could. The next day, it was not Margot who called. It was Hannah. Can I come over? She asked. To my place? I said, surprised. It's not Hathaway-sized. I want somewhere that smells like dinner, not polish, she said. Please. I set a pot of chicken and rice, the kind you make when you don't know what else to heal. I lit a candle that cost $3. I put the white porcelain cup on the table, just to see what she'd do. She arrived without makeup, hair in a ponytail, coat too thin for the wind. She looked younger than I'd ever seen her, less curated, more human. She sat down and stared at the cup. Can I? Go ahead, I said. She picked it up, turned it slowly. This is the cup. Eat this. She shouldn't have done that. He did, I said. But now we know what we're working with. She rested her forehead on her palm. It's always been like that. She tests everyone, nannies, wives of partners, even dad. She tests because she's afraid, I said. People who own everything are often terrified of losing it. He's not the only one who failed yesterday, Hannah said. I failed too. I saw her do it, and I didn't say anything. You were protecting your place, I said. That's not failure. That's survival. She raised her head, eyes wet. But you didn't stay quiet. I'm not trying to be invited back, I said with a small smile. You are. She laughed through her sadness. You're braver than me. I'm older than you, I said. Bravery is just a habit at this age. She went quiet, then said what I felt had been sitting in her since the wedding. I was scared you'd look down on us. I blinked. On you? For being rich, she said. For having everything handed to me. You think I resent you? I asked. For marrying my son? For loving him? She nodded, ashamed of the thought. I reached across the table and took her hand. Hannah, I prayed for you. She looked up, startled. I prayed that when he finally fell in love, it would be with a girl I could talk to, I said. A girl who would see him, not just his work. A girl who would sit at a kitchen table like this. I didn't pray for rich or poor. I prayed for kind. Her shoulders sagged with relief. I am kind, she said. Most days. But in that house, kindness feels like weakness. It isn't, I said. But in that house, you will have to prove it. How? She asked. She holds the strings. Then cut one, I said. Start small. She stared at the cup. With this? Yes, I said. Bring it back. Put it on the table the next time they host. And when she corrects you, say, Grandmother chose it first to remember where we came from. That way you honor Eleanor and expose the change. Hannah breathed out, amazed. You're dangerous. I'm a librarian, I said. We fight quietly. She grinned. What if she gets mad? She will, I said, but she won't be able to call it rude. Because it won't be. It will be true. Hannah nodded, slowly becoming braver in her own bones. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Before she left, she paused by my bookshelf. Can I borrow something? She asked. I gave her a novel about immigrant women surviving polite societies. It's fiction, I said, but only just. She hugged me at the door. Thank you for not being what she said you were. She didn't say what I was, I said. She said what she hoped I'd stay. When the door closed, I sat back down at my table. The plain cup sat between us like truth. I realized then the real face to be revealed wasn't just Margot's. It was Hannah's. And my son's. And maybe even mine. The one who had allowed herself to feel small in a room she paid to raise a man for. The Hathaway charity dinner that month was not about charity. It was about recovery. Mrs. Delacour's adjustments had clearly stung. Margot needed to reassert her command over the narrative. This time, the table was even grander, crystal candelabras. A floral arrangement that smelled like envy. Name cards written in calligraphy. A string trio playing Vivaldi in the corner. As if money had a soundtrack, I arrived on time in a dress I'd saved for years. A simple dark green that made my eyes look like I had slept well. I brought nothing but myself. As I took my seat, I saw it. In the very center of the long polished table, amid the gold rimmed china, sat the plain white teacup. Hannah had done it. I caught her eye. She looked terrified, but proud. Margot walked in, saw the cup, and stopped. It was half a second, but I saw the storm roll through her decision tree. Rage, calculation, audience. Interesting choice, she said, voice light enough to perform. Who set the table? I did, Hannah said, keeping her voice steady. I thought we could honor grandmother. She said she always kept that to remember where we began. Several guests smiled politely, thinking it was sentimental. Eleanor beamed. I did say that. Margot flicked a glance at me. I gave her nothing but calm. Conversation began about auctions, about a museum gala, about someone's son getting into Princeton. But underneath it all was the fact that a plain cup had been placed among thrones. It changed the chemistry of the room. Halfway through, a woman beside me whispered, "Oh, I love that you included a vintage piece. Such character." "It's not vintage," I said. "It's honest." She blinked, laughed, not understanding. Then, as if the evening hadn't tested enough, life joined the test. Rosa came rushing in from the hallway, eyes wide. "Mrs. Hathaway." Margot turned, annoyed. "We're serving, Rosa." "It's the bank," Rosa said, forgetting to lower her volume. "They said it's urgent about the line of credit." You could feel every fork pause mid-air. Jeffrey stood too quickly. "I'll take it in the study." He laughed. The music faltered, then continued a touch too loud. Guests looked at one another with the kind of curiosity rich people hate to be the subject of. Margot's smile went brittle. I knew this moment. I'd seen it in different clothes. The moment when a family's real wealth gets measured not in dollars, but in how they carry embarrassment. Margot lifted her own cup, avoiding the white one. "Please, everyone, continue." But Eleanor set down her fork. "No," she said. "We will not pretend. We will sit, we will wait, we will be a family, not a theater." An 82-year-old woman had just taken command. The trio stopped playing. Dishes stopped. The room quieted. Jeffrey returned 3 minutes later, face pale. "We will have to sell the lake house," he said quietly to Margot, "and renegotiate the Hamptons property." Gasps, small but sincere, moved around the table. Margot stiffened. "Not in front of all of us," Eleanor said. "This is what happens when you build on image." Daniel stood then, slowly. "Does this affect my position?" he asked his father-in-law carefully. Jeffrey looked at him, then at me. For the first time, he saw me fully. A woman who had raised a son without a single one of these cushions. A woman who had survived actual lack, not just the threat of a smaller vacation home. He swallowed. "No," he said. "If anything, we may need you more." I looked at Margot. "Imagine that," I said softly, "needing the son of a librarian." She glared, then smiled, a real smile this time, tired, human. "You are insufferable," she said. "Do you know that?" "Yes," I said, "but I'm inexpensive." Laughter broke the tension. Guests relaxed. The moment was saved not by elegance, but by honesty. After dinner, as people left, many of them stopped by me. "It was lovely to meet you. Your son is wonderful. I love your dress." I had not changed, but the story about me had. Because when their real faces came out, mine did too. 2 days later, Margot asked me to come alone. Not for tea, not for a performance, for a conversation. I went, wearing jeans and a sweater this time. No need for silk. No stage. She met me in the smaller sitting room, the one that looked actually lived in. family photos, a basket of knitting half done, a teacup on the side table. The white one, she gestured. Sit. I saw it. She looked at me for a long time. I was awful to you. Yes, I said. You were. I thought you'd be. Grateful I let you in, she said. I was grateful, I said, but not for the reason you think. I was grateful because your behavior showed your daughter who you were. She winced. I didn't want her to stop admiring me. She didn't stop, I said. She just started admiring someone else too. She swallowed. You, not just me, I said. Your grandmother, the staff, even your husband when he was honest. She learned that love isn't all up there. Sometimes it's over here. Margot leaned back, suddenly looking older. Do you know how hard I worked to not be looked down on? Yes, I said. I saw. My mother-in-law made me feel like a charity case for years, she said. I learned to make sure no one ever made me feel small again. And then you walked in here with your plain purse and your schoolteacher voice and your calm. And I felt small again. It wasn't me, I said. It was your own reflection. She laughed without humor. You really were a librarian. Books teach you patterns, I said. People repeat themselves. She sighed. I'm sorry I used the cup. Are you sorry for the cup? I asked, or for why you used it? She thought about that longer than I expected. For why, she said. Because I wanted you to know your place. And do you still want that? I asked. No, she said truthfully, because now I know you know it better than I do. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she surprised me. Teach me, she said. I blinked. Teach you what? How to do what you do, she said. To walk into a room and not care if everyone has more than you. I smiled, not unkindly. That's easy to teach and hard to learn. Start anyway, she said. So I did. First, I said, you remember that money is furniture. It makes a room comfortable. It does not make it home. She nodded. Second, you remember that you can lose a house and still keep your name. She nodded again, slower. Third, you remember that kindness is not poverty. It is power that doesn't have to shout. Her eyes glistened. Fourth, she asked, like a schoolgirl. Fourth, I said, never use dishes to insult people. She burst out laughing, wiping at her eyes. Fair. I stood to leave. She stopped me. Take it, she said, pointing at the white cup. You carry it better than I do. No, I said, leave it here. You need the reminder more than I do. She looked at it, then at me. Will you come to tea again? Yes, I said, but not as the poor, naive mom. As what then? She asked. As the woman who raised your son for you, I said, and did a good job. She nodded, the fight gone. You did, she whispered. You really did. Daniel came over that weekend with takeout and a nervous energy. Mom, he said, setting the bags down, I owe you. For dinner, I teased. For not seeing it sooner, he said. For not stepping in at that first tea. You were busy being a newlywed, I said. It's forgivable. It's not, he said. I'm your son. That's exactly why it is, I said. Sons take time to see their mothers as people. He sat across from me, elbows on the table. Hannah told me what you said about praying for her. I did, I said. She cried, he said. She thought you saw her like Mom did. I saw her scared, I said, and I recognized it. He studied me. Were you ever scared to meet Dad's family? Yes, I said, but his mother knew what it was to worry about money. We met as equals. It's harder to meet someone who has never had to wonder about rent. He nodded. The worst thing is, I think I believed them for a minute. Believed what? I asked. That you were beneath them, he said, ashamed. Because you don't dress like them or talk like them. And then I thought, she paid for my books. She sat with me at night. She didn't marry me into wealth. She educated me into a life. Reached over and squeezed his hand. Thank you for saying it. He swallowed hard. I'll never let them treat you like that again. You won't have to, I said. They learn. He smiled. Grandma Eleanor told me she scolded Mom, said you reminded her of herself. High compliment, I said. He grinned. She also said you and she should start your own tea. We should, I said. But we'd serve coffee. He laughed. Relax now, the boy I'd raised. Mom, are you okay with me being in that world? Daniel, I said, my job was to raise you to walk through any door. If I wanted to keep you in mind forever, I would have raised you to be afraid. He looked at me with new respect. You didn't? No, I said. I raised you to love. He nodded, eyes glassy. I married a good one. You did, I said. And she will be even better when she's a little more yours and a little less theirs. He sat back. You know what the funniest thing is? Why, they're not that rich. I laughed. I know. You knew. Daniel, I saw the signs the first day. The nervous staff, the calls, the audits. People who really have it don't need to parade it. He shook his head in disbelief. And you said nothing. It wasn't my story to tell, I said. Yet, he looked at the counter where the plain cup sat, drying in the rack. That cup is going to be a family legend. It already is, I said. He stood, kissed my forehead. Thank you for never pretending, he said, even when I did. After he left, I sat alone in my kitchen and realized something else. My real face had come out too. I was not just the humble widow from Brookfield. I was the moral center of this odd, glossy, frightened family. And they knew it now. Connecticut towns carry news like wind through maples. By the following Wednesday, our pastor, the women at the library, and even the clerk at the bakery knew something had happened at the Hathaways. Did you really call them out on the Delacourts? The baker asked. I really told the truth, I said. She grinned. Good, they needed it. At the library, my coworker Jan leaned over the circulation desk. You're a legend, she whispered. Our quiet Clara walked into marble and brought out blood. I laughed. I didn't bring out blood. I brought out people. Same difference, she said. Even Rosa stopped by on her day off, shy in jeans. They're nicer now, she said. She says thank you more. Good, I said. She should. Rosa hesitated. She also asked me to find more plain cups. I smiled. Maybe she's spreading the reminder. But it wasn't all praise. At the farmer's market, I overheard two women from the country club. It's so gauche to correct a hostess in her own home, one said. Yes, the other said, no matter how right you are. I passed by them, smiling. Correcting cruelty is always in season, I said. Even in good rooms? They flushed. I kept walking. That Sunday, Pastor Miles preached about the table, about how Jesus brought people to tables who weren't supposed to be there, about how hospitality is not performance but surrender. I felt Margot's eyes on me from two pews up. After the service, she waited. I heard the sermon, she said. I thought you might, I said. She took a deep breath. We're having another tea, a different kind. Will you come? Will there be tests? I asked. No, she said, just people. Then I'll come, I said. At that tea, there were no gold rimmed cups. Every woman, me, Rosa, even the neighbor who ran the daycare, drank from plain white porcelain. Even Margot, even Eleanor. Symbolism is powerful, Eleanor said to me quietly. It is, I said, but only if the heart changes too. It's getting there, she said. Don't rush us. We were snobs a long time. We laughed. Spring came late that year. The last of the snow sat stubbornly in the shaded parts of my yard while the Hathaways' lawn turned green overnight with the help of professionals. I sat at my little kitchen table, sun on my hands, the white teacup beside my notebook, and thought about everything that had happened because I walked into the wrong room with the right heart. I met my daughter in law's family as a poor, naive mom. That was the costume they chose for me, and I let them put it on me because I wanted to see how long it would take for the cloth to rip. It did. It ripped the moment real pressure entered their house. It ripped when their line of credit was questioned. It ripped when their 82-year-old matriarch reminded them where they came from. It ripped when their daughter saw that kindness was not something to be embarrassed of. What I learned is this: pretending to be small will always reveal who actually is. I thought about Margot, about the girl she must have been before the pearls, trying to fit into a room she felt was just a bit too tall, about how cruelty for her was armor, about how when the money shook, she finally let the armor slide down. I thought about Hannah, how she had been born on the carpeted side of life but was not yet spoiled through, how she had immediately understood my lesson with the cup, how she used her position to correct the pattern. How proud Daniel would be when he learned to see that in her too. I thought about Eleanor, how she had once bought fine china to stop feeling like laundry, how she later chose to keep one plain cup so she would never forget, how even she, in her old age, had watched her daughter weaponize the very reminder she had designed for humility. I thought about Rosa, how easily working women recognize each other regardless of rooms, how she had seen me humiliated and helped me leave with the souvenir, how class travels on kindness faster than on cash. Most of all, I thought about Daniel, a boy from a house with one income who now sat in boardrooms with men and women whose shoes cost more than our month's groceries once did. And I was so grateful I had not let their version of me stay. I picked up the cup, turned it in my hand. It was warm from the sunlight. You could still see the faint scrape where it had been set down hard. You could see that it had been used, washed, used again. It was ordinary. It was durable. It was enough. I said it out loud so the room would hear and remember. Real class isn't afraid of plain cups. The wind outside carried the smell of thaw and river. I imagined future teas in that big house where Daniel's children might one day sit. I imagined those children being handed whatever cup was clean, not whatever cup was meant to put them in their place. I imagined Hannah hosting not with anxiety but with warmth. I imagined even Margaret, older and softer, laughing about that time we tried to test Clara. Maybe one day they would tell the story wrong. Maybe they would say it was all a misunderstanding. Maybe they would forget the edge in Margot's voice that first day. That was fine. I would remember. And so would the cup. I stood, washed it gently, and set it on the drying rack. Not on a pedestal. Not in a glass cabinet. On the rack. With the other dishes that had done their work. Because that is what I wanted my daughter-in-law's family to learn. That some things are valuable not because they are rare, but because they are faithful. I met them as the poor, naive mom I left them as the standard.